You can have just as much fun off the river as you have on the river when you're on an international paddling trip. So a couple of things that you want to consider. First of all, read up a little bit about local culture. Maybe find out a little bit about the do's and don'ts of things that you should do while you're actually interacting with people from the local communities. When we travel, there are things that are a lot different than there are at home. Food can be different, drink can be different. Sometimes certain foods could end up not agreeing with us. When you're launching into new foods, to start off with smaller portions and as far as spices go, start small and work your way up. If you start off with loading on the spices on the very first day of your trip, you could end up spending the rest of your time either in bed or somewhere near the bathroom. As well, in a lot of destinations, there's plants, there's bugs, there's other things that you really just don't want to touch or come into contact with. It's a good idea to bring a pair of light, long-legged tights, bring some light socks because there's a possibility that there may be sandflies or mosquitoes or other things that could end up nipping away at you. That ends up ruining your trip in the event that you spend most of your time just scratching your legs as opposed to being out and paddling. In certain areas, we might have large spiders, scorpions, snakes, and you can pretty much ensure that your best bet is to assume that all of those are potentially hazardous and dangerous, so there's no need to try and pick them up, point at them, or poke at them. You may also find that one of the biggest nuisances are in fact ants. If you have food in your life jacket, like an empty wrapper, you could find out that the next morning that your life jacket is filled with ants trying to get at that wrapper. It's a good idea with any of your gear, instead of just throwing wet gear into the corner, that you actually hang that stuff up so it has an opportunity to dry out and that creepy crawlies don't have the opportunity to climb into it. If you're sleeping in a building which has a thatched roof, it's also a good idea to pull your bed a little bit away from the walls. There are many bugs that like to hang out in those wet, damp thatched roofs, and if it rains, they'll then start climbing down the wall. As they climb down the wall, if they hit your bed, next thing you know, you're going to be climbing into bed with a spider or a scorpion. Before putting your shoes or booties on in the morning, it's always a good idea to give it a little bit of a shake, make sure that something hasn't taken up home for the night and you're inside your shoe. When you're walking in the bush, it's a natural reaction, especially if it's wet and slippery, to try and reach out and grab something. Often many plants in the tropics have thorns, possibly some type of contact dermatitis issue, or give you some other type of problem. So a pretty good advice is when you're walking around, try your best not to touch anything green. Things that you do off the river can be just as fun and adventurous as the things that you do on the river. It's a good idea to try and figure out a little bit about how things are health-wise in the area that you're going to. Perhaps there's certain inoculations and things that would be worthwhile getting in advance of your trip. Best thing to do for that is to go to a local travel clinic, let them know where you're going, let them know you're going to be in a rural area, and see what they recommend as far as shots for your destination. Those are all things that will ensure that your time off the river is just as much fun as your time on the water.